Well, hello, and welcome to our backyard garden tour number 24 for the year 2025. It is August 8th of 2025, and as we're hitting the midsummer point here, we've actually got a pretty nice day. We did our front yard garden earlier, and it was a pretty dismal early afternoon, but now around 4 o'clock, it's actually turned pretty nice. It's considerably warmer. Low 80s, I believe, and just a great time to look at the garden. So we're starting here with some cleome at the very top of our hill next to our garage. These are doing really well right now, but they're kind of at the end of their line. Very interesting flowers. I haven't really talked a lot about them this year, other than just showing them. They, of course, give these big, almost like globes of small flowers or flower parts. Most of them are kind of a lavender color. We have a smaller percentage, maybe 5 or 10%, that are a light pink. But once they grow, they continue to just follow the almost like the beanstalk upward. And these are all seed pods. So at any given point during the season, a flower, if it's getting fertilized, will put out a tremendous number of seeds, and these have just reseeded themselves all over our backyard over the last few years, and they are welcome because their flowers are gorgeous. Now, also over in this area, we have some snapdragons, and these are strange things. They're growing up out of the concrete, as you can see, and all the snapdragons in the remaining part of our yard are long since finished up. We have a lot of different colors, a lot of different plants, and these were the first ones to start growing back in April, and they're still growing now in August, despite the fact that they are just bombarded with heat on this concrete. And we've got another one over here and another cleome, although this one is completely done. Now you can see the seed pods are done. This plant is finished up, but the one next to it here is still flowering, so we're still going to get a little more color out of those for a while. And of course we have more down the hill here, and I'll show these off, including one that is pink. I think this is the only one right now that we have that's pink in color. The rest of them are the light purple. But again, these are growing up out of the concrete. We have the most fertile concrete in South Carolina, as I like to say. And more through here. Over in here, it's primarily just, excuse me, came out of nowhere. Morning glories. We get a few little light blue flowers in the mornings here, but most of the ones in our backyard haven't done a whole lot. We get a lot of purple ones in the front yard, and those have done great. But the ones here, they've put more space, as you can see, over this whole area here. They put more energy into the foliage than the flowers themselves, so they're not really doing a whole lot other than just being ground cover, which is not the worst thing in the world, but it's also not really doing our yard any real good. It's just going to be something I have to clean up later on. Now this plant here, I've been talking about this one for a while. It just sort of appeared. There are two of them, one here and one over here, that we're going to look at, and they get these peculiar flower stalks on them, sort of a pink color and sometimes a white color, and they continue to put out more and more of them here. These just appeared. I don't know if they're weeds or if they're something proper. This one is a pretty good size. I'd say about 5 or 6 feet in height, and as I say, they're rather attractive. It's a big plant. This just started coming up about 3 months ago, and it's already got a pretty sizable trunk. So I'm willing to let it go if it's going to be something that adds value to the yard, but I'm not quite sure if that's the case or not. Coming down here to the fire pit, we'll go around this way. I need to spend some time doing some weeding. I've sprayed a lot. I've killed off a lot of the weeds to keep them from progressing, but I need to pull a lot of those dead ones out just to make this area look a lot nicer. But we've got more cleome. This is a real hotbed of them. they seem to thrive in areas that are not necessarily all that fertile. A couple of years ago, we had stones and this rock or brick base or edge put around the fire pit to try to keep down the weeds, and it's been just the opposite. It's been like a weed magnet, and it's basically just a black canvas with stones over it, and yet even though there's no dirt in there, they have managed to just take off. And so what I thought I would do, I did this last year, is just let them continue to flower. Once they're done flowering, like, you know, some of these are finished up over here, just pull them all out and just kind of spray everything and get all that out of there and start it over again, because I don't want it to completely disrupt the entire stone bed. I think, despite the fact that it looks terrible right now, in the springtime, before this all got going, it looked pretty nice. Now, going back to the garden proper, we have our hydrangeas over here. We have 4 huge ones, all still pretty much in full bloom. I think they've kind of hit their peak. I think we're probably just over the top now. You're starting to see, if you look closer, starting to get a little bit off color, and some of the ones up higher are starting to get a little bit discolored. So I think we probably hit our peak maybe 2 weeks ago, but they're still beautiful, and it's really one of the most prominent not sunflowers, but summer flowers that we have in the South Carolina upstate. You can see our neighbor has one that's about 12 feet high. His is probably a good 10 years old, and still just covered with the flowers, and it's really a stunning impact plant. It's nice, especially along a border like this. We have on the lot line with our neighbor's huge evergreens that are probably 20 feet tall, and then these at the base, and they've really taken over, which is good and bad, because we have had other things in here. We had a lot of digitalis in the spring. We had Asiatic lilies that have all come and gone, but they all get kind of pushed aside because these hydrangeas are so big. Another thing that has gotten pushed aside is this butterfly bush, which is just kind of getting swallowed up by the hydrangea, unfortunately, because it's a beautiful flower. Now this butterfly bush is still doing well. As you can see, all the purple, or magenta, I guess I would call that. Just when I think this one is about done, it keeps going. So we've got maybe another month or so of color on this one, I think, before it gives up the ghost. So probably somewhere around Labor Day it'll be finished up. But not a whole lot else here. I mean, if you look along the base, my wife had put in some impatiens back in the early spring. Unfortunately, we have just not had an opportunity to get out and fertilize them, so most of them have just sort of withered. They just don't look very healthy. We've also had a very hot and dry spell over the last few weeks. The impatiens never like that sort of thing, so I think this is just not a good year for impatiens. Some years are good, some not so good. And this is not one of them. Get some astilbe back in there that are done. Lamb's ear, I talk about those a lot. Just a little ground cover plant, but basically just about everything else up in here is finished for the year. We had like a knockout rose here, a lot of clematis, but those are all spring flowers. And then we have 6 big azaleas, which are slowly taking over, and these will bloom again in large numbers come October, I think. We're getting a handful of little blooms now, here and there, just to kind of give a preview of what we're going to have later on. But these are fantastic. They bloom twice a year with all these flowers. They are they do kind of take over. They're kind of like the hydrangeas. And as you look back up through here, this is pretty much what you see is the azaleas and the hydrangeas. But it's worth it for the color, because they put out a lot more color than just about anything else. Now, one little surprise that I noticed when we were back here last week was these hostas. Now, most of our hostas bloom in the springtime, but these are blooming now because they're in such heavy shade. And they're not big. They've never really taken off that much because they don't get much light, but they're beautiful flowers. beautiful plants. And whereas most of the hostas that we have in our yard have gotten to be just huge over the years, these have stayed almost the exact same size, but they're nice little bloomers, nice little flowers that are kind of unexpected this time of year, and it's nice to see. Now over here we have our wisteria, not really doing anything right now. It's just sort of hanging out on the fence, but next spring it'll give us a lot of purple flowers. Another azalea over here. Some black-eyed Susans through here. Everything else in this area is pretty much done for the year. A lot of weeds, probably half weeds now, and the rest is just garden. But a lot of daylilies back in here. They had a good year, but they're all long since finished up. The last azalea here, we do have one rose that's still giving us a few flowers, but that's going to be probably the end of that for the year. Few zinnias here, rather small ones. We put these in back in the spring, grew them from little coffee cups, and they're doing moderately well. Not as well as some of the ones in other places in the yard, like in the front yard. They've done extremely well, but this is an area that gets pretty brutal in the summertime with heat, and I try to water pretty frequently, but they still kind of struggle. A lot of the plants are just not meant for this kind of thing. Now this one is a knockout rose, big kind of a blood red one. Beautiful plant. It's never gotten back to the size that it was a couple years ago before the beaver ate it down to the ground, but it has come back significantly, and I think next year it'll probably get bigger yet. It's given us consistent flowers throughout the season, which is great. And over here, daisies, which are kind of done for the year. Our camellia, long since finished, that blooms in February, and this year, February and March. And then our climbing rose and jasmine up on the trellis here. I will be cutting those back significantly come spring. They took over a little too much this year. I like the fact that they're growing all across the top, but it's like a haircut. They need to be trimmed back every so often just to kind of keep them under control. And here we have a kind of a quasi climbing rose. This thing's about 6 feet tall. It's really not a climbing rose, but it acts like one, and keeps giving us flowers. And this is beautiful flowers. In fact, it usually loses most of its leaves through black spot, but then it'll regenerate some of them. These are all new leaves just in the past month, but it continues to do well. We have a spider work down here. Now if I get out early enough in the day, you can see the little purple flowers from that, but they're all gone by the time the sun comes out like this in the late afternoon. Then we have Veronica here. These tall purple stalks of flowers. Bees always love these. You can see a little bumblebee right there. And we've got a little pink rose in the background, another little pink wildflower that I don't know the name of right here. And then another, just a tea rose here, kind of a coral color. And then the thing that I noticed last week, and this is just the strangest thing, but it's what happens in gardens sometimes. We had a big zinnia here, and something came along, I don't know if it was a deer or what, and just ate it right down to the ground during the week. And same thing over here. We had a whole mess of zinnias, and they were eaten all down to the ground, all down through here. And looks like they may have come back and gotten some more things. I think, yeah, we had some more zinnias last week over here, and they've eaten those all down too. So I don't know what it was that came through here, but this area was full of color just a couple weeks ago, and suddenly it's all gone. There's really nothing to see now. But we'll show off if this little guy stays motionless, and he probably won't. But a little dragonfly there, kind of an interesting one. I talk about our all the different species of insects that we get here, and dragonflies. We have so many different colors and shapes. This is a green one. We get a lot of blue and black ones and other colors, and they're very, very pretty. I've never really appreciated dragonflies all that much. I always thought they were kind of creepy looking, but now that I have them in my yard, I've come to really appreciate them. And here we have some dahlias that really have never bloomed. I don't know what their issue was. This area has been, it's kind of struggled for years now. We call it the dead zone. We can't really get a lot of things to grow here outside of one wisteria, which is doing moderately well, in this strange thing that I just call an ice plant because it kind of looks like it has frost on it. And then this one tropical plant that grows. We have one in the back here. We don't know the name of it. Somebody just gave it to us, but it gives beautiful tropical flowers. Those finished up a few weeks ago, but those are about the only things that'll grow in that area. But unfortunately, not a lot of color in this part of the garden right now. This is our weeping cherry. Keeps getting a little bit bigger each year. Another wisteria back in here. Stay tuned until springtime for that, because it's spectacular when it lets loose. And speaking of spectacular, we've got a hydrangea here from our neighbor. These blue ones are really nice. They bloom kind of off season. Ours are all spring. Theirs are usually late summer, which is kind of cool because it gives you some color when you're thinking that the season's just about over. Now, last week we came through here down in the terrace, and we were looking at the canna. You can see some of the yellow flowers there. The darker colored canna, these taller ones here, usually put out red flowers, but we have not had too much success with those. And we do have one, so I'm going to bend it down to just show it. Real tropical looking canna. Our neighbors seem to do very well with those. We have not had a lot of success with them, but we do get a fair number of the yellow ones. Right now, not so many. I think last week was kind of its peak, but as any of you know who watch these videos, I'm not a big fan of canna, at least not in our yard. They have not really done all that well as we had hoped. We had a lot of black-eyed Susans through here, and that's about all that's blooming in this area. We had daylilies earlier, just standard orange daylilies. We've had irises and other things in here earlier in the year, but right now we've got more weeds than anything else in this part of the bed. So this is something where in the fall or next spring or both, I'm going to need to get out here and really put some time into this and pull out dead stuff and try to get this cleaned up to some extent, so that the things that we want to maintain, like I say, the daylilies and the black-eyed Susans and the iris, that those are doing well, and get maple trees and just random weeds and canna that are trying to take over, get those out of there so that they don't just completely take everything over. So we're back up to the trellis here, and we're going to walk through that and head back on up to the house and kind of finish up our little tour here. I haven't talked about these for a few weeks. So these are our tea olives. They are another good border plant. We have 8 of them here. I will say in the spring they give us some very nice little fragrant white flowers. Otherwise it's just a lot of greenery. And one of them has not done especially well. It's not dead, but it certainly has not thrived on any level. It's kind of a strange little plant, but I'm hoping it'll survive long term and maybe kind of grow up like all its little brothers and sisters there. Coming up the side of the yard, we just have a lot of hosta. Unfortunately, we also have a lot of weeds. I had this area really cleared out. I haven't looked at it for a while, and it's just covered. And there's just solid weeds through there. You get to a point in our yard, it's usually about now, August, September, where there are so many weeds you just kind of give up. It's not worth the fight. And especially when we get to this point, most of the plants, flowers that are going to flower have already done so. The only things that are really still going here are these phlox. Usually you think of these as spring, But here they're doing very well still, these beautiful little pink flowers. We have a few Veronicas still back in there, but all of our roses are done now. They have all these big seed pods on them, and I should get out here and deadhead them, but I just haven't gotten around to it. We do have some marigolds growing. These sort of washed down off of the deck where we were doing a lot of gardening earlier in the year. And so we've gotten some nice marigolds kind of popping up out of everything else that's not really doing all that well now. One exception to the roses is these white ones that are blooming right now. So that's probably the last one that'll bloom. And then we still have some zinnias that came up out from seed here. Lilacs back in this area. They're certainly not doing anything this time of year, but there are more weeds in here than anything else, so not really worth watching. A lot of daylilies all finished up. We do have a nice lavender rose. I won't say it's exactly thriving at this point in the year, but it's not dead. It's giving us a little bit of color, which is kind of nice. Normally we have had a lot of tomatoes back in this area, but between weeds and this massive climbing rose, it's kind of squeezed them out. We haven't gotten a whole lot in the way of tomato crop for a while now, but these climbing roses are worth the effort. I had to chop them way back. They had taken over our stairway. Couldn't even get up or down that until earlier today, so I cleared that out. And then we've got over in here a few more blooms and a lot of buds. I mean, these are going to be opening up. We're going to have a lot of flowers well into September on this. And then our Asiatic lilies long since finished up, and again, a lot of weeds. And back in here, you can't really see them right now. We had some tomatoes back in here earlier. I think I got a total of 4 or 5 tomatoes for the entire crop for the year, and that was it. Hosta's about done, and this is where I chopped the roses back. You couldn't even get up this stairway until just a couple hours ago. And here we are, we're back to the top. So again, just a lot of different things, not as many as we saw in the spring, certainly. This is a very spring heavy and early summer heavy yard, but we have more going on here than we do in the front yard, and it's always worth looking, and every once in a while you get some little surprises here and there. One thing I'm just gonna add another minute or two to this because it's YouTube and I can do anything I want. I did skip right over this. It's always worth mentioning. This is our butterfly bush in the backyard. Our other one, more of a purple color, and it's kind of a variegated leaf pattern. But they're still doing very well. Probably will give us color for another month. This is all one big plant. It's kind of like a climbing rose. It's just completely gotten out of hand, and I'm going to have to chop that back next year so that it's not growing so many leaves and spending a little more time putting out flowers. But one thing I forgot to do when we were down here earlier was to come down to the water and just see by any chance if we had anything going on with our water lily, and it looks like we do not. This is a water lily that I put in a couple years ago. It was just given to me. It's done pretty well. I think it did give us a flower a couple days ago. You can see right in the center of the screen there, the little flower pod. They close up and then they just sort of settle down in the water and go away. But I've been getting about, on average, 1 flower per week with those, and they'll be out for maybe anywhere from 6 to 12 hours, and there's a bright yellow color. I'm going to try to get another one next year, hopefully a hardy one that'll last through the winter like this one does. And they're very low maintenance. You don't really have to do anything. They just grow, and that's what I like. The less maintenance, the better. So there we go. I don't talk. I could probably put a few more seconds of this in and talk about our grass. Our grass has been an ongoing challenge since we moved here 7 years ago. previous owners of the house had never really done anything like weed control or fertilization or anything, and we've unfortunately struggled with a lot of different types of weeds, including crabgrass. And talking to our lawn guy, he said that this has been a bad year for crabgrass because of all the rain that we've had, and so he came through and killed off some of it, and you can see these dead patches here. He had hit those with weed killer, but unfortunately there's a lot of that same kind of grass in here, and overall certain areas of the yard look pretty decent, and then others don't look good at all. Like right through here, this looks nice. This is doing about as well as anything. In fact, this area was struggling earlier in the year, and it has filled in nicely. Middle part of the yard, a lot of crabgrass, and then this area up in here is just strange. We put in a lot of grass seed back in the late summer, early fall last year, and it came up and it was doing really well. And he said, don't touch it, don't do anything with it. But we had a fairly cold winter, and it seems like it may have killed it off because this area has been largely bare since then. So I don't know much about grass. It's really not my area, but I would like to get this looking better in the future. So I continue to work with our lawn guy. He said it could take a couple years to get it back to where we want it to be, but we're gonna keep working on it and hope it looks better each year. So that is it for today. Hope it is sunny wherever you are, and until next time, happy gardening.